Okay, here we go. You know, one of the things that makes this interesting is the topic is eyes on state elections. And since this is television, you literally have to look. So, just say.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So we're looking, and our eyes are trained on next week. Well, it was supposed to have been this week, but you all know what happened. Postponed from this week until next week. And next week we shall all be going out, I hope, to vote for 28 governors and the houses of assembly of those states. To look at this with us this morning, to join us in this conversation, is my pleasure to welcome Joyce Daniels, a social engineering practitioner.
Thank you for having me again.
I'm sure you remember her from the last time she was with us on Sunrise, which is over a year ago now. And
almost a year.
She couldn't make it here, and we had to talk to her in traffic. And you all had all kinds of questions and messages and comments for her. She's here with us live today.
Yay. Thank you.
Morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
And sitting next to her is Mr. Ken Ubeche, publisher, political economist. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Always nice to be here.
Hope you had new Naira notes.
Who does?
Don't you worry.
Just say. Just say. Don't look at me like that.
Must you go there?
He's an economist.
So?
Whatever that means. I mean, it's political. Come on.
Political.
And then on this side is social commentator, Mr. Gbolahan Olojede. Good morning.
Good morning and nice to be here.
Do you have any new Naira notes on you?
Oh, you see?
I'm beginning to forget what the colors look like because I'm not seeing a reasonable number of them.
Okay. All right then. Well, let's.
So why did you go there?
Let's go to the topic at hand, which is next week.
Okay, I understand we have Prof also on Zoom right now.
Oh yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Abdul Ganiyu Raji, former resident electoral commissioner for Osun State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. And good morning to all Nigeria.
I was thinking maybe I should even start with you, Prof. No, let me start with the general public first. Let me start with the lady. What were your thoughts when you heard about the postponement?
I know so many of my friends who are running for office are tired. They are tired. They've been campaigning for a year.
Wow.
They are spent physically, financially, mentally. So I was like, oh.
They just want to move on.
So I just reached out to a few of them. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. One of them was like, I'm so tired, my God. And then I thought about the people, and I go, oh, would this be a good thing or a bad thing? I said, okay, good for those who would reinforce energy and say, you know what, we're going to come out. Bad for those who would say, hey, you see, they want to. So here and there.
Yeah, but Ken, some would say, one more week for us to campaign. Let's take advantage of that 1 week.
Definitely. I mean, you know, the average politician everywhere in the world is an incredible optimist. They always believe they won or they will win. So giving them 7 more days to campaign, to them is another 7 more days of strategy or re-strategizing and being optimistic.
But I'm not sure that but Joyce's friends will agree.
But you know, this is what I've always anticipated. I have always told my colleagues that the way INEC chairman spoke when the Labour Party went to get that expertise motion for them to examine the beavers and interrogate the process, there was a comment that came from INEC that this may interfere with the next election.
Yeah.
And I thought that was not needful. That is not smart reason. Because you are telling me about a technology called beavers. Even my little phone in the 21st century can store things I have done right now. And I will store them somewhere in the phone and do more things next week, more other things even next year, and still recall those things I've done before. So any technology that's not smart enough to store what you have done, you have to reconfigure or recalibrate, doesn't look to me as smart technology. And that's why I worry about the beavers. Is it smart enough a technology fit for what we are doing in the 21st century, a technology that cannot store what he has done in a manner that nobody can go there and mutilate it. Because that's the impression they are giving us now, that they have to recalibrate. And if they don't give them that time, they may not be able to hold the next election. These things ought to be anticipated by the electoral body.
But you're also aware that one of the things with phones, for instance, is you can use any phone anywhere. But then there are certain phones you can't use in Nigeria because of the way it's been configured to a specific network from abroad. You're aware of that?
No, definitely. But that's a specific network.
Yes, I know, but perhaps that's because from what information is available to us, thankfully you're a journalist as well, from what information available to us, from INEC, each machine, each of the devices is configured to a specific polling unit.
Yeah.
Now we're having 28 governorship elections, not 36. 28. So there are some that have been deployed to states and would serve in all the polling units for one reason or the other. But now, in some areas, it's not going to happen. Maybe that is the reason I can't speak for INEC.
The word he used was smart enough. Even those networks that cannot be used, we have boys that... we have boys and girls in every state who will unlock
community that can do this.
I don't think we want to engage those boys for Beavers.
My point is, it's smart enough.
Is it smart
There
enough?
are people who... Anyway.
I don't think we want to engage those boys for this thing, sincerely. But,
Boys
your
and girls.
thoughts.
Well, I'll take it off from the Beavers thing. Beavers did deliver on what it was designed to deliver, which was to be able to accredit a voter. And anybody who voted on the 25th will tell you that Beavers delivered. It worked. I don't think the problem we have is a technology problem. I think it's a people problem. Whether you're talking about planning and anticipating something, or you think about the capacity of a server, say, for example. Look at the off-cycle elections. One state, one election. So we had a robust transmission here and there. When you go from one state to 36 plus one state, and you have 3 elections, so 3 multiplied by 36 is the quantum of increase you have brought on that same device or network. It is a people problem if we did not anticipate what will be the impact when you go from 1 election in 1 state to 3 elections in 36 plus 1 state. So it's not the technology that messed us up. Messed up.
I beg to just disagree with you a little bit. The job of the Beavers was not just to accredit voters. It was also to transmit
Or transfer.
whichever word you want to use, transfer the information after the election
To a server.
to a server so that you and I in real time
Can look at
can
this.
be following the results. Okay,
Yes.
the results from my polling unit is
Yes.
already up, and the information there is exactly what
we got.
what we saw,
Yeah, what we recorded.
what we recorded while I was there.
I hear you loud and clear. Beavers can transmit. It did transmit.
After 24 hours.
In previous election, it did. In the current election, it did. We must query why those things did not move when they're supposed to move. And I can tell you, I can assure you that it has nothing to do with the capacity of Beavers to transmit.
What about situations like some polling units where the agents, not the agents, the INEC staff were saying the password isn't working?
Yes, the
It's
code.
not moving.
Yes.
No network. Is that now people or tech? In my brother's polling unit, for example, they kept the INEC staff there for over 4 hours. They said, you will not leave here until this tech works. The people are here. The people are saying, our hands are good, though. We are pressing. Ogasi, we are pressing. It they go. So, you see the issue.
At the end of the day,
tech, it's people. It's both.
It's both.
It's both.
Why I say it's both is this. And that's why I use the word anticipation. We have been having off-cycle election. We had Anambra, we had Ekiti, we had Osun. They looked good. I mean, on the face of it. Let's say 60% okay or 60 to 70% okay. But you should also anticipate that when you are now transmitting, do you have that capacity, technical capacity, to move that volume of data almost at the same time to that server. Does your server have the redundancy to also absorb those things, that it doesn't crash? Because servers crash. So all those technical issues ought to have been factored by the regulator or the custodian of the electoral process. That's INEC.
Maybe there's another, I don't know what word to use for it. Like, look, back in time, it was ballot snatching. Maybe now it's e-ballot snatching. But let me ask a Prof, what do you make of all of this conversation? I mean, there are many who will place it on the fact that this issue of transmission of votes from the polling units to an INEC server has questioned the integrity of INEC significantly. How do you respond?
Thank you very much. And I say good morning again to viewers. Well, the issue goes beyond the way we are discussing it. For every problem or for every issue, there are quite a lot of solutions or angles at which we must look at it. There are administrative problems, and there could be technical problems, and several like that, and political issues as well. Well, the beavers was tested since 2020, just like the issue of the server has been on even before the 2015. But one of the things in INEC is that INEC operates by the rule of law, and everything that INEC will have to do must conform with the provisions of the law. It isn't that the beavers doesn't have the capability or the storage capability to handle even the whole election in West Africa. Please take note that all the voters in West Africa combined are not up to the number of voters in Nigeria. So the beavers has the capability, but INEC must work within the provisions of the law. So when somebody was talking technically and was saying that it should have capability or capacity to store this and then operate this way and that way, there's a lot of things that we do encounter on the field. For example, the way the beavers work is that after taking the picture of the result, and also even the digital one that is on the beavers will have to be transmitted or transferred, or whichever word we are using, immediately. And whether there is network or no network, it goes onto the cyberspace offline, and whenever the holder of that beavers moves, and then wherever they encounter the network, what has been transmitted would eventually go onto the server. But politically in Nigeria, once that thing is not done at the polling unit, people will not allow that person to leave, just because they don't understand the workings of the beavers. You might send SMS, and sometimes it will not alert you that it has gone, and you will not be charged. But at the end of the day, after some few minutes, the person at the other end will tell you that he has received. That's the way electronic system works. But sometimes when you explain some things, there are other motives behind it. Well, I'm not absolving INEC completely, because there are people who always have motives. But the system, I believe so much in the commission, I believe so much in this country that we have very good system, we have very good policies, but the implementers may be the problem. And then those that these things are being implemented for would also be a cog in the wheel of the progress of the commission. So that beavers is an Android machine, and then the way we expect an Android machine to work is exactly the way it will work. It can store, but presently the provisions made is that we will transfer the information onto the server and then now reconfigure for another election. And I think at this stage, when people did not understand what that meant, they should have sought for INEC's clarification. The last time I spoke here, I did mention that, and I was happy that maybe about 1 hour thereafter, INEC made a release. I said, even me, though I'm no more an insider, that at that particular point in time, INEC should make a release. There should be a statement explaining what is going on. And we were so happy that 1 hour after, there was a press release explaining some of the things that are going on. And but not that everything could be explained. And the other person did mention that a lot of things has to be, they have to be investigated before we start talking about, condemning or accepting or doing whatever. There should be explanation from INEC on why some of these things have happened. But I'm sure INEC is doing its investigation. And by the time they will come out with what happened, we'll get to know. Well, as for the password, I can't speak much on that because I was not on the field. But I know the provision, the requirement, and what we do to those that we are training, especially the registration area technicians that we call the RATEC, who handles the beavers, is that, and all the presiding officers as well. Immediately they are being trained. Each of them, once they are issued with the beavers that they will use, right from the registration area camp, the RAC center, the RAC camp on the eve of the election, they will be given the password. So if passwords were not given, where I can comment on that, but I know the provision within the policy of INEC is that the beavers is given and the password is given because you cannot even open the beavers to use for the election if you do not log in onto the beavers. So some of these issues, I'm also confused. I don't really know what is going on. Maybe if one interacts with some of these RATEC and the presiding officers, we will know what actually happened, why the passwords were not working.
Okay,
but I'm sure, I'm a teacher, and I know the kind of educational system that we are running in this country. We have so many universities that are just like secondary school. And that's why one would be surprised sometimes. You see the presiding officer doing simple arithmetic.
Professor, I beg your pardon. We have to manage our time. But you will also agree that in explaining all these systems to us before the election, INEC never mentioned that after the presidential elections that they would need to go and reconfigure. So how come that was never put into the equation and explained to us mere mortals who were going to stand and vote? Come rain, come sunshine.
Well, I will not agree with that because even though, except we replay the speech of the chairman, that is the normal practice, even when we were using the smart card reader. I conducted the 2019 general election in Ogun State. Even when we were using the smart card reader, after the presidential election, we reconfigured for the governorship election. And, we are doing these things in piecemeal. These things are being brought into the Electoral Act and the INEC procedures for elections. Okay. So I'm sure it's clearly stated in the Electoral Act and the procedures for election.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you, let me take it from that and, used to take it to the conversation we are having. Ken, the challenge that we've had over time, in my opinion, has been that of communication. We've had that challenge successively for so many years, it's almost become a norm. And it has greatly, from what I can see, affected and depleted. That lack of communication has greatly depleted public trust in anything government, even if it's local government. So long as you're a government official, your word is not trusted. And it has also affected voter turnout because people are disconnected, so to speak, from anything governance. With our eyes on the state elections, and you're a journalist, what should be the communication and from whom to restore confidence in our processes? Because it's the only process we have. We've chosen democracy and we have chosen INEC as the only system through which our elections can be organized. That's our referee and that's our VAR. What should who be saying and when should that be?
And I beg your pardon, Ken, in responding to that,
Yep.
please also remember that before the presidential election, everyone, or practically everyone, was confident in the system that INEC had explained.
In the technology.
True.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I think now it's time for INEC to be singing like a parrot, telling us and explaining and even apologizing to Nigerians. Because what happened last Saturday was that it came out to be an anticlimax.
Yes.
The technology that was so drummed
Yes.
and trot out as near perfect, quote unquote. There's no perfect technology anyway. But they gave us so much confidence. In that BVAS, the fact that we got to a level whereby a guideline came out to say that election results will be transmitted real-time online. I hope they know what it means, real-time online, in the real sense of it, in technology space. It means that once it happens, you upload it and anybody can access it. Yeah. That's what we look forward to. And that's what now galvanizes people to come out and vote. Before then, there was voter apathy, for crying out loud. Before then, people don't come out to even register to vote. But now we had a major turnout of people coming to vote, or to register first and foremost, that we had over 94 million voters in the register. And 87 million came to actually collect the PVC. You know, you look, that was a festival that was waiting to happen, a democratic festival, that in a manner that we have never seen before. But it turned out to be an anticlimax. Because the people that came out that day, some of them were red light from voting, some were intimidated. This technology that was so hyped didn't work. I don't know what the professor is saying, but this technology didn't work in some places. It couldn't capture some governors. They had to stay on the queue. It couldn't capture that your finger or thumbprint on your face. The governor of Rivers State was there. I mean, it's an example, a living example. There were other instances.
But he eventually voted.
Yeah, he eventually voted. But you know, it also happened in 2019 where the incumbent that time, 2015, Goodluck Jonathan and the wife had to be on the queue. The card reader could not read them. And they don't recognize the DNA of our president anymore. But what I'm saying is that people should be talking. INEC should be talking and apologize to Nigerians and explain to us what happened and why what happened. Then the political parties too must begin to tell the populace to please, yes, it didn't come out the way, it turned out the way we anticipated, but come out and vote. Come out this time. We believe that INEC must have learned their lessons. And then when we speak that language to the electorate, we must also moderate the language we use, so that we don't see, the atmosphere is heated up already.
It is.
It's tensile, it's February.
Add to that, please,
Yes.
Before I come to Joyce. It's not just the establishments that should be speaking. The people should be speaking. Let me actually bring that to, you know. There are a lot of, as Ken just mentioned, tempers are high. The emotions are on tethers right now. So caution must be the word. As a social engineering practitioner, what should we be saying to ourselves? You've heard all kinds of things, all kinds of sentiments, all kinds of belief systems in the public space now. That should not be. It's been there, but it seems like this is some kind of unfortunate climax. What should we be saying to ourselves? The media has been crying itself hoarse about what we should be doing, what should we, the people, be saying to ourselves, irrespective of our interests?
We should be saying to ourselves that this is the price to pay. Ask almost any woman who's had a baby, there are labor pains. There are labor pains. And every man knows about it too. So these are the challenges that come with development. Teething in a baby brings some sort of discomfort. They have to give teething powder and all of that. Growing comes with its discomfort. Pleasure, to eat good food, you have to cook and go through the pain of being in the kitchen. So it's part of what we seek.
Or pay for it in a restaurant.
Or
That's
pay
very
for
expensive.
it, and if you pay a lot, if you find the naira, if you find the money, after buying the money, you buy the food. So it's part of the journey. Nothing worth having really, truly, honestly comes so easy. You want to be a whatever you want to be in life, you will go through a process. So this is part of the process. So we're saying to all ourselves, and the media really helps. There was a video that channels and somebody partnered to deliver before the last elections, where we saw the process of how to vote, how to get accredited. Yeah. You know, that was so helpful. Yeah. It went everywhere. People were creating infographics and all of that. Individuals, everyone needs to continue and encourage each other. Parents should be saying to their children, look, that's just what it is. We keep going. We keep going. Spouses, friends, colleagues are saying, you know what? We'll do it again. We'll do it again.
Okay. You don't go away from that
okay.
Yet. Last week, you heard one or two of our guests. Okay, you must have heard about it. One or two of our guests saying, okay, no, it was last week. Was it last week? Where we had Professor, the leadership consultant, saying himself and members of his family didn't have the same political ideology.
Okay.
Akundayo.
Professor Akundayo said he couldn't persuade his children that this is the way they should go, they will consider. And he wasn't the only one. A former SAN in an Attorney General, an SAN and former Attorney General in Oyo State also said the same thing. Himself and his family have completely different political divides.
Divergent.
And one way or the other, it happens on the streets. It happens in the same class. It happened at polling units. If you voted in a particular way that didn't go well with other people, you were attacked. And it happened in every region of the country. What should we be saying to ourselves about that? Because it will happen again. People are going to vote differently.
Peace first. If we are destroyed, then we won't even have any benefits at the end. Peace first. Peace first. Tolerance. Tolerance is when you don't agree with the other person's point of view, but you allow it be.
Exactly.
So right now, we need tolerance more than respect. Because I may not respect your thought. I may be so disappointed by your thinking because it's different from mine, but I should tolerate it. Tolerance right now is one of the most needed skills that we can use to pull through. Tolerance for each other.
Well, in light of all the things we saw happen 2 weeks ago, do you think people are going to be eager to come out next week to vote?
It's a dampener in a way, what happened. So people need to be encouraged to vote. And I think some people are also trying that. I'm within my own network and circle of influence trying to encourage, because this is more important than the election of the 25th. The road, that road to your house, it's not going to be fixed from
by the president.
Water will come out of your tap. Has nothing to do with the president. The school your children will go to has nothing to do with the president. Whether the drainage around you will cause flooding has nothing to do with the president. So what affects 90% of what affects the day-to-day living of a Nigerian is done at this level of governance. So we cannot afford to ignore what is going on here. I know that elections are largely emotional issues. Sometimes you even engage with people and that candidate you want to vote for, what has he done before? He doesn't know. But he's emotionally attached for one reason. Okay. Reasons as simple as is handsome. It's basic for some people. Yeah, I'm serious.
Right.
He's handsome.
I just like the way he dresses.
It's a largely emotional decision.
I like the way he speaks.
Yes.
Well, you see, we must also compare it with how you first
I will vote for someone because he's handsome.
Yes. I've heard some people say that as well.
Yes.
But you see, that's
that's what makes us human.
Looks like I'm the only person who has not heard this before.
No, yes,
right. Across the world.
These are the realities.
Even the Bible said Samuel came to the house of Jesse and they said, oh, this one looks like a king.
Yeah,
we should anoint him.
And
he's tall, he's handsome, he has broad chest. Come on. Not this raggedy little one.
Deceived by the physique of a man.
Yes. And how do we choose spouses anyway? We start from
at least I want to believe that the educated class in Nigeria
incidentally
not
among the educated.
Those sentiments drive
sentiments.
I'm telling you.
It's how we are human beings.
The way the human mind is wired.
It's unfortunate that, the most profitable things in life don't go that way. For instance, you want to get a job. you don't employ the person because he's a good-looking person.
It could happen.
No, it could happen.
Now, from the HR point of view,
Yes.
it could happen.
It depends on the type of job you're doing.
And who is interviewing?
Yes.
Calm down. Wait.
It could happen.
Wait. So I need an accountant.
Okay.
And I will employ one because he's
Who is
good looking.
in the engine of the motor car of my business,
Yes.
and the hood is shut. And I will now be looking for a handsome one. In fact,
No,
the
but
uglier the better.
If you're looking for a
could
marketer.
happen. Even with the accountant, it could happen. Depends on your state of mind. It depends on how important that business. It depends on so many factors.
So if he is not,
it's possible.
if he's not qualified, I will choose him because he is handsome.
It's
That's
a bit
what
more
humans
tricky when it comes to
do.
the private sector. But really, as elections is concerned, forget it. It is largely emotional.
So,
Largely.
to the
Jeez.
proper thing, I'm sorry. What are the things? Because I always hold the opinion that when we elect people, we're actually employing them.
Definitely.
Correct.
But that perspective doesn't seem to be popular.
It's not popular. That's exactly what I'm saying. And it's part of the campaign. Political parties have left the issues of voter education to INEC. It's as if it is INEC's business to go and do. When in the real sense, they are the beneficiaries of those votes and should be actively engaging the people on the field. Though I've seen some more engagement in
the
recent
last
times, which
one
were-
week.
This election has
those were the kind of things that ought to have been happening from way back.
Yeah.
Engage the people. We are too distant from the people we govern.
So, Jerry, I'll go to Prof in a second, but we had a guest last week where he made a proposition, and you may also want to speak to this guy. Said, before we should have a minimum qualification standard for anybody that wants to come into politics for elective post at all. And he recommended NIPS. That even if all you got was a diploma or a certificate course at NIPS, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, that's the one major thing that should qualify you to be in elective posts.
We could have achieved that in an evolutionary manner. In the US today, there's no prescription of educational standard to become the president of the US.
Oh.
So US have had presidents that had no college degree. But over time, in the course of the evolution of democracy in that country, it has almost become standard.
Unsaid.
Unwritten.
Unwritten, but
in
expected,
practice.
yes.
So we can also take that because, see, if we pin it down to certificate rather than education, it becomes a problem.
content.
People may have the certificate but might not
no
have the
content.
education.
You don't have the content.
Okay, Prof. So
Especially as we tend to buy certificates.
now, Prof.
What did you want to say?
You've heard conversations around voter education and a number of things that INEC did in the past election, and hoping that would also happen. Now, there is this baggage, so to speak, that INEC has to deal with now concerning the issues that arose from the February 25 elections. And Ken here, Mr. Ogweche, has suggested that, look, INEC should be singing like a parrot. Well, I don't know if a parrot is better than a nightingale. That should be talking more frequently to Nigerians about this election in order to instill confidence. How do you propose that should go?
Well, thank you very much. Speaking, most of the time people always look at me as somebody who is an internal person within the INEC. But I just always want us to be very objective in whatever discussions we are having. Somebody has spoken the other time and said politics is more of emotion. And as we are maturing, I'm sure the emotional attitude will eventually be fading out, just like the issue of the qualification that has been discussed. It's also almost fading out in the United States. Don't forget, they are over 150 years old. We are not yet 70. As far as the voter education is concerned, I quite agree with the fact that the politicians, we have to take up this issue of voter education. INEC, the whole voter education issue has been left with INEC, and there's a limit to which INEC can actually do that. the politicians can reach the grassroots. INEC is also involved in education of the politicians extensively, honestly. But because of the level at which we are in our political engagement now, well, once there is a mindset or somebody has a target and he wants to get to that target, meet the target by whatever means, sometimes some things may not eventually sink. But my own take is that we should rather be supporting our policies rather than bringing those policies down. So I agree totally that we should push this issue of voter education to the politicians. But at the same time, do they really know what to tell people other than vote for us? So these are issues that we should look into. But INEC has a very, very robust policy and system on voter education.
But what would you say some of those issues are, Prof? That because it sounds, some would take it that right now you're absolving INEC of any responsibility in terms of voter education. But what are the things that people should be expecting from INEC? And add to that what you also just finished saying now about education, voter education from the perspective of political parties. What should the political parties themselves be saying?
Well, I'm not absolving INEC because the other time I did mention that within INEC, the implementation, we may also find issues with the implementation. Because when you talk of INEC, INEC is a commission. When you talk of the people within the INEC, that is another issue entirely. They are Nigerians. Just like politicians are also Nigerians. But I believe that there should be a kind of cooperation between INEC, looking at the policies of INEC on voter education. There should be a kind of cooperation between INEC and the politicians, because the politicians can actually reach the grassroots better than INEC. Politicians are existing in every corner of this country, whereas INEC will have, specified ways of doing the voter education, a systemic one, which may not necessarily get to the grassroots fully. So that is why I'm advocating that there should be, this voter education issue. While I was in INEC, this is what we always tell the politicians, that they should be seriously engaged in this voter education issue. Sometimes we invite them, even when we want to do the voter education exercises, and sometimes they will not even come. They will not even come. So, but as a Nigerian, I'm also worried, because when somebody doesn't even know his or her right, or what are expected of him, how do you expect such a person to even behave well? So these are the issues that we need to face in this country. Why a lot of people don't even know what is going on. Then we also, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not taking time. We also mentioned the issue of the elites. Well, as a researcher, I did something outside. I went outside the box and then investigated the middle class, the elites, and then the lower class. We found out that it is the elites that are actually not participating in the electioneering processes. I have my data, I have my information. It's there. So, but they make the largest numbers. That's what's going on.
Okay.
But the lower class are not even enlightened at all.
Those who are enlightened don't take part. Those who are not enlightened are the ones
Those who
that
are not enlightened
are
actually the ones taking part.
I think
that is
evolving. And like he asked, what's one of the challenges that we have to this communication? Power distance is a challenge in any country where power distance is rife. That is where subordinates, as it were, cannot speak to power.
Yeah.
It starts from home. At a certain age of parents right now in Nigeria, Mommy and Daddy, I know you might be watching. Sorry, let me just say, I couldn't question my parents. If I had said, Mommy says do this, and I say, why? Why?
Our generation couldn't.
Yeah. So my first son is going to be 21 this year. I better explain it to him. else he's not moving. Mommy, why? And he would give me reason why this, that, and the other. And he said, but you told me that if I'm not clear, I should ask. Now we will have that conversation. So it's a challenge with some of the ages of people who are contesting and have been contesting over time. And it's changing. Even when you see the younger people who are running for office, the amount of information they put out is different because that's our generation of wanting to have conversation. We want to be clear. It's not trying to be rude. So some people who are running for office now would say, I beg, what am I telling them for? It's power distance. They're not necessarily trying to withhold information, but it's how they've operated. What's the age of the person in charge of INEC right now? He belongs to that age of people who might, as an individual, feel, what's the issue?
That's not to say that his PA and all of that are not young
exactly, but those are the issues that we have. They are real.
Joyce,
the PA may want to speak, but say, let me not speak until Oga, you know.
Joyce, you know,
it's for us
last
to
week,
acknowledge.
we discussed dealing with teens in our lifestyle segment, and we actually ended up apologizing to young people. Say, okay, sorry, we tell you to shut up, but we now understand that we're supposed to actually discuss with you. We appreciate that, and we have accepted it. It's a different generation altogether, so we're with you
and
on
it's
that
tough.
one.
It's tough.
Yes, let me go to Ken now. Ken, the issue of vote buying was a big issue before the presidential elections. In fact, so much so that the CBN gave vote buying as an excuse for changing the money, which we're all still suffering for. But since that election, how much have you heard about vote buying? It seemed there wasn't too much of vote buying.
Well, you can't say there wasn't too much because vote buying is not something somebody comes to the marketplace to do. It's discreetly
Nobody's talking
done.
about it.
No, it's discreetly done. So they may have bought some votes. It's about strategy. What strategy did they use?
I've not asked my question yet.
No.
I've not asked my question.
Ask your question so that I can take
My
all of
question is, next week, are we expecting that kind of behavior at the polling units or wherever?
You know what happened this time, and actually from the off-cycle elections in Osun Ekiti, that there was this deployment of plain-clothed security operatives. And EFCC chairman has been drumming it, that we are all over the place. You may not see us. But you know, it's also part of the things to raise that consciousness that you can be arrested for buying or for selling. And we saw what happened in Rivers on the eve of the election, that a sitting House of Rep member was caught with some dollar.
Yes.
So vote buying may have been in a different currency and in a different style, and you may not know. It was caught around past 2 a.m. So that could have been the time they bought the votes.
But it was reduced.
Yes. No, it was reduced, but then what I'm saying is it's not, it may not be reduced. It may not be as primitive as it used to be. It is now scientific. It's now
the reason I say reduced, let me speak for my polling unit. This was the first time I voted in the polling unit where I voted this time. And I interacted with some people who said they've been voting here since 1999, forever.
Yeah.
This was the first time they neither saw nor were offered. They weren't even offered nor received monies. One, there was no money.
Yeah.
There was no money. Even people who wanted to could not. Many people were trapped. Yet, she, the first woman who said it to me, and she's at least in her 60s, she said, yet, we have more people out here than ever before. So it means we will actually vote even when there is no money given.
Yeah.
It was reduced, and I was very intentional about asking certain people in certain polling units. I was intentional about that because I know some units where this has been, and they don't see, okay, they didn't see money from anybody. Now there were some stories at some places, some monies were transferred here and there, but there was no network for the money to land. It was reduced, it was more systemic, more... less primitive, more organized,
sophisticated.
More
Sophisticated
but
is the word.
also reduced across
Sophisticated.
board.
But is that to say then, because I mean you both have discussed that, but is that to say then that a consciousness has been sparked?
Definitely.
Yes.
About the responsibility or the duty of the Nigerian citizen?
The electorate.
To a certain extent.
One, how do we sustain that consciousness?
Well, I think to a certain extent, like I said, the consciousness is there. But that is not to say that if you leave that window open, that politicians will not do it.
Exploit it.
So there are factors like she mentioned, the fact that the cash was not even there. You want to talk about dollars? Dollars is difficult to distribute. How much? $10. It's a whole lot of money.
A lot.
It was different from a situation in which people were carrying bags of money around in some of the off-cycle elections and giving to voters 5,000, 4,000. You know, it's a totally different game. However, since we have arrived at this junction and we know that it is possible for voters to still come out, in fact, for voters to even reject inducement, we saw that in one of the off-cycle elections, I think that was Oshun, then we can use awareness to continue to drive that and sustain it. It's all part of the voter education that we're talking about. If you give you 5,000, it is 4 naira per day for the next 4 years, all those kind of message. Continue to drum it.
Yeah.
National Orientation Agency is not really there any longer. But
We are all now national.
we're now, yes.
We are.
So all of us
Individual
within our own
Within
circles of
orientation.
IOA, Individual Orientation Agency.
But that also raises a question of, that also raises a question of around the people that will be voted for. I don't know how many of you caught that. Let me ask you, Ken. I don't know how many of you caught that. But there was a time when, perhaps it's a good time to even begin to wrap up because we are running out of time. I heard some people say, this person that won, we didn't really know him. So we don't know the people we are recruiting to do a job. So how do people interrogate the person whom they want to give a particular job? That's the reason I was asking around, qualification or lack of it the other time. Because if you don't know the person you want to give a job to, that means even you yourself don't know the job or job description that you want to give to this fellow.
Job description. And one thing, a prof was trying to dismiss it, and I think I disagree with him. He said something that is emotional. Issues of election in this part of the world for now, and even everywhere. It's about interest. Interest is driven by emotion. Interest and emotion are inseparable anyway. So voting for somebody you didn't even know happened in many places in the last election. People profited for just being part of a political party that had a wave, national wave. And I give an instance here. My own representative in the House of Rep, Ndudi Elumelu, a big name in Nigerian politics, could not go there again. A non-starter, one Okoli, who nobody knew, just because he belonged to Labour. And in Delta, they said it's all Labour. Let us even Labour in vain. They don't care. No, that's the emotion. One thing is that, why am I saying that? The disenchantment, it tells you about dismay, disenchantment, and distrust. These things are eating deep into the people.
You are starting this conversation on another tangent altogether because you have only 1 minute. Yes. Because we are wrapping up now.
I'm just concluding. Let me land now. Let me just land. So I'm just saying that these things are driven by emotion. And what you said now about what should they be looking at, they don't want to care anymore. They just want to change the whole order. Whether whether they land in the deepest part of the sea or not is immaterial to them now.
Okay.
And it's dangerous anyway, but that is the reality we have.
Okay. The responsibility is on those of us who do believe in qualification and all to organize. This time more than ever, we saw more organizations put together debates and conversations for aspirants and candidates to sit. So we continue it. Okay. We plan for it, we finance it, and then we make it happen.
Mr. Lojede.
This is the most important election.
Yes.
The local government, nothing much is happening there. Abuja is too distant. So the states are what impact us the most in our daily lives. And we should not let it pass us by.
Incidentally, no one has spoken about the House of Assembly elections. Don't even go there. Prof.
It's part of the state.
It's a department of the state.
Prof, I see that you've been chuckling and following the conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think I agree with all of them. This election is very, very important. It's like we are coming back to the grassroots, and we have to be very, very, very careful. Somebody said the other time, the president will not come and give you water. because that's the prerogative of the state. And so, those are some of the things that we need most. So we should be very, very careful. We should not let our emotion push us to wherever that will not pay us because of personal interest. I think we should think more of the communal interest than personal interest.
Okay. Professor Abdulgani Raji, former resident electoral commissioner, Osun State. And we had in the studio with us Joyce Daniels, social engineering practitioner, ladies first. And we had also a social commentator, Mr. Bolahan Olojede, as well as Mr. Ken Ubechi, publisher, a political economist. So the message, of course, is as follows. Never mind what happened 2 weeks ago. I will apologize on behalf of Nigeria. We are very, very sorry.
Yes,
but please come out next week and vote. This is more important to your life than the presidential election. Abuja is far away from where you are. The president doesn't care whether you have water in your house or whether your street is tarred. He lives in Abuja. This is the person who is going to look after that water that you need in your house, that road that you need to your house. All those are taken care of at the local level. So please come out and vote massively next week, wherever you are in this space called Nigeria.
And if you think that your state government headquarters is too far from you, you're right. But it's not as far as Abuja. Just take that home.
We'll be back with another conversation in just a moment. Stay with us.